Hey there, gamers. DreamcastGuy here. Today we're talking about Xbox because they just did a very deep dive interview that I think they said stuff they shouldn't have said. Basically saying that the entire Xbox brand is just dead, and even going third party isn't actually going to save it. Now, this is from the people at Obsidian. Obsidian Games is pretty much the only Xbox studio that's really putting stuff out. You could talk about Hellblade or Gears of War or Halo and stuff, but really, who's putting out the actual games? That's Obsidian. Games like Pentiment, Grounded, Outer Worlds, right? They're putting out games. Avowed. Obsidian is the only people making Xbox games. And they just did a very long Bloomberg interview where they straight up said that it just doesn't work. At this point, nobody's buying Xbox games. Even when you put Xbox games onto other platforms, they seem to bomb. It's a very bad predicament that I think still spells there's not only not going to be a next-gen Xbox, I don't even think there's going to be a third-party Xbox soon. But let me explain, because there is a lot to go through. Hi, hope you're having a great day. If you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. So, there is something very strange about the Xbox time period because we are in this era where games are coming out. Like High on Life 2 is technically an Xbox game. I mean, isn't that one of their studios? You are getting stuff occasionally. Avowed came out last year, although nobody really cares about it. Why is that coming soon to Game Pass when it came out forever ago? But my point is the fact that just in general, it feels like we're now in this era of negative hype. People are actually so anti-Xbox that even a lot of the developers and stuff don't want to be associated with the brand. Like, consider the fact that during the era of Xbox One versus PlayStation 4, of course the PS4 completely slaughtered the Xbox. But last gen, it did feel like whether games were good or whether games were bad, people like Sony and Microsoft, they would be very clear about their successes, about their failures. When a game like Hi-Fi Rush bombed, Sony would talk about it. When Xbox came out with something that was a huge, huge success, they would talk about it. Whereas now, it feels like there's this secrecy. Xbox is not talking sales numbers. They don't really report anything. And it seems like, honestly, even their fans at this point just don't want to talk Xbox. There was a report that came out from the Game Developers Conference that nobody wants to make Xbox games. They want to make PC games. They, of course, want to make PlayStation 5 games, and people are excited about the Nintendo Switch too. Nobody cares at all about Xbox. Now, truly let this sink in. These people are the people making games. This is the entirety of it. You know, the old Xbox got no games. This is it, baby. This is literally the nail in the coffin to prove that Xbox as a brand is never, ever coming back. But even let's talk about this fiscally, right? Okay, maybe Xbox console sales are down. Nobody's buying Xbox controllers. Nobody's subscribing to Game Pass. Maybe they could bounce back next generation. Well, apparently not. So in this interview, this is the people at the top of Obsidian Entertainment. Apparently, Grounded 2 sold good. Avowed and Outer Worlds 2 completely bombed. They spent 6 years on each, and they sold maybe 10,000 copies. I mean, these were catastrophic, hole in the smoldering ground, crater bad sales. Josh Schroyer says, "We did make a mistake. It's not good to release 3 games in the same year. It's the results of things going wrong. Spacing these releases helps the company manage its resources and not burn everybody out." Now, here's something that came out to me like a laser beam. There have been multiple leaks that Amy Hood and a lot of the people at Microsoft, they've put an impossible requirement onto Xbox Game Studios, which is a 30% profit margin. Now, this is insane. This number is enormous. I mean, 30% profit margin. When this got leaked, a lot of Xbox people actually came out. Like all the Xbox fanboys said this number is a lie. Because if this number was true, 30% profit margin, this is the death of Xbox right here. Because nobody ever even gets close to a 30% profit margin. I want to actually show you something, right? Here's the profit margin of Netflix. Netflix, one of the most profitable brands on the planet, right? You can see up here, they're making $45 billion just this recent quarter. But look what their profit margins were, right? Look at this down here. This was a very famous thing for a long time. They were basically around a 2 to 3% profit margin for years and years and years and years. Now, this seems psycho. Why would you have such a tiny profit margin? Well, it's because they were trying to boost their revenue, their stock price, right? All right, if we make, $16 billion in revenue, we want to put that much into our product. So you can see here they would spend like $15 billion making shows if they made $16 billion. It's to increase the company value, and it paid off more and more and more. So we got to the point where they're having like an 18% profit, 20% profit. Even now, one of the biggest, most powerful media companies on the planet is a 24% profit margin. They want somehow, I don't know how, they want Xbox to be more profitable than Netflix. And the reason I'm making that comparison is because clearly that's their vision, right? The whole idea of Game Pass was instead of having the typical big box profit, instead of saying, hey, here's Ghost of Yotei, a $70 game, you buy it, you play it on your $500 console with your $80 controller, right? All of that is profit, profit, profit. Their goal is, okay, we're going to sell you a $250 Xbox Series S, at launch anyways, back when they were like $300, and then you pay $20 a month to play these games. Everybody subscribes to the service, everybody wins. But now Game Pass is $30 a pop, the Xbox is $800 a pop, and the controllers, they're like $1 million. Who cares, right? This is basically just psychopathically bad. But I saw everybody is freaking out about this interview on Reddit. The Games Reddit, the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit, the Xbox subreddit. Look at this. I'm surprised that Xbox Studio Head was able to be so open and candid. It's a nice change of pace. Xbox's whole thing has been ignore our studios and hope they make games for the last decade. So I'd be surprised if anyone the higher up even knew this interview was happening. Now, it is interesting because this interview really does talk to everybody up and down the ladder, from the heads of the studios to the creative leads to everything. And everybody is basically saying Xbox has screwed us. Now, I will admit that this comment here roasts me perfectly because I have always been a big believer of let the people make what they want. If you want to make a big, crazy, cool RPG and have crazy, weird crafting systems, I really don't like crafting systems, but if that's your perfect game, make your perfect game. You want to make a weird brawler with too many cutscenes, make your perfect game. And it seemed like everybody basically said that this is the good approach, right? This is the idea. Devs are flawless heroes, and anybody trying to manage them are evil money men. So that could be better than letting them do on their own without supervision. So it's strange that Xbox hasn't been pumping out constant bangers for years. Very strange. The original promise of a lot of these Xbox acquisitions, especially with Bethesda and stuff, is that all these people said, oh, now we can do what we want. We don't have to think about tax brackets. We don't have to worry about the investors. We don't have to worry about marketing. We just make the game. And what comes out of that? Stuff like Starfield, stuff like Hellblade, games that are not bad necessarily, but they're not great. They're all 6 out of 10s. And I feel like all these 6 out of 10s back to back to back is not just devaluing the brand of these studios. I feel like it's just making people realize maybe these people do need management. Maybe they do need Xbox to come in there, or Sony to come in there, or somebody to come in there and say, yo, why aren't these games fun? But this is over on the Xbox Reddit, and this is another one that a lot of people are talking about. The graph paints a bad picture for Xbox. Yikes. Now we're going to get into this comment for a second. This to me, the whole article is crazy, but gosh, this to me is the wildest thing. Sinking to the bottom with Xbox. Microsoft's gaming revenue year over year. Oh my gosh. This is so bad. So this is essentially this is the last 3 years. So basically midway through this generation, right? We're 6 years since the Xbox Series X. This starts 3 years into the Xbox Series X. And you can see it just goes to 13% revenue, -3 there, all the way down here to -30% here for Xbox physicals, positive 62% profitability. Look, even when they are selling games, even when they are managed to do stuff, this is when they had a good selling Call of Duty, watch it just drop off a cliff. Look at this. -30% on console sales, -25% on console sales, and finally, -5% on games, -32% on consoles. There really is no positive way to spin this. This is just bad. This is end of Xbox bad, right? And people are pointing it out. That graph paints a bad picture for Xbox. Yikes. It's been pretty clear Microsoft is trying to kill the brand. Rumors of the next console being $1,200 and the fact that the current console is far more expensive than it was at release, kneecapping major IPs associated with the brand. It'll be interesting to see how Fable and Gears of War do. And it seems like right now, as a return to form, but it's all BS till we play it. Now, I do want to quickly say, it's interesting, the excitement for Fable specifically, I have a lot of people that aren't really gamers in my life, right? I got a lot of friends that are like more movie buffs or, I don't know, like reality TV and sports and stuff, right? And it's interesting the amount of people I know that have come up to me and said, do you know about the new Fable? I am kind of curious. I do think that Fable might be crossing that line into mainstream appeal in a way that an Xbox game has not done in a decade, but I want to go back to this here. There's no evidence of Microsoft killing the brand. The $1,200 console stuff is an unsourced rumor, but what's actually happening, per Bloomberg, is Microsoft is pushing studios to control costs and scope, not abandoning IP. Fable and Gears are the real test, and yeah, trailers don't mean much. We'll see at launch. These words right here, control, costs, and scope. This to me almost is the sign of how dead Xbox is. But let me explain. So cost and scope, right? If you're trying to make a game that's a $10 million project and you keep scaling it up and now it's a $100 million project, you need a lot more profitability on the back end. It does seem like, in a way, that this is all Microsoft really cares about. How tight, how cheap, how quick can you get it out? All right, if this is the minimal aspect, the tiniest amount of work, right? Even something like Avowed. I did not like Avowed. Avowed had 10 giant patches after release that introduced more graphics stuff, more DLC, more adventures and stuff. And a lot of people are like, why wasn't this in the game at launch? In a way, Avowed coming to PS5 here in 10 days, it's going to be the definitive edition on PlayStation 5. And a lot of people, especially a lot of Xbox fans, are saying it does feel like in almost every time now, they're just rushing games out. Really, unfortunately, Outer Worlds 2 doesn't feel done. Hellblade 2 doesn't feel done. I had a lot of people get mad at me, but I said straight up when Starfield came out, Starfield does not feel done. These are games that aren't rushed in the typical sense. They're not trying to hit a particular like fiscal quarter. It just feels like, honestly, Xbox doesn't care. They say, that's good enough. You've spent enough money. It's freaking not too glitchy. Throw it out there and let the hogs slurp it up. It'll sell in Game Pass or it won't sell at all. And at this point, the business, 30% bad sales, every single sign is showing that this is the end. This is the hard line in the sand that they can't come back from. But these have been my thoughts. How do you feel about the idea of Xbox right now? How do you feel about, well, everybody's unfortunate reactions to us? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.